Open almost any English Bible, and you will find the Hebrew word Torah translated universally as a single word, law. While law is valid in certain statutory contexts, relying on this English equivalent narrows a term that in its original environment shifts its meaning based on who is speaking and where they are standing. To recover the actual semantic range of Torah, we have to look past modern legal assumptions and the popular metaphors often used to explain it. That investigation begins at the foundational level, with the specific grammatical architecture of biblical Hebrew morphology. By reconstructing the word from its internal components, we can see exactly how its linguistic structure dictates its primary function. Torah is built on the root yarah, yod, rush, hey, meaning to cast down. In the causative stem, it means to direct a student toward a target. The prefix tau turns this into a noun. The yod becomes a vowel, yielding the word Torah. The noun then adapts based on its grammatical relationship to other words, becoming Torat to denote possession, or Torot in its plural form. At this architectural level, the word refers to the authoritative direction or instruction pointed out by a teacher. This etymology is often used to support a popular claim that Torah means aiming at a target to hit the mark, while the primary Hebrew word for sin, chata, means missing the mark. While this metaphor draws on the historical root of the word, defining a biblical term entirely by its ancient origins risks what linguists call the root fallacy. This is the error of assuming that the historical parts of a word dictate its current living meaning. In English, the word butterfly is built from butter and fly, yet these components tell us nothing about the actual biological insect. Modern linguistic scholarship views this mechanical archery metaphor as an illegitimate totality transfer, reading a specialized, literal use of a root into every instance of the noun. Academic lexicons instead define the word through comparative Semitic data and contextual syntax, identifying it as a term for authoritative instruction or judicial rulings. Reducing the word to a mechanical aiming metaphor oversimplifies the text, bypassing the moral and covenantal gravity it carries throughout the biblical corpus. This gravity is visible in the word's historical trajectory. Early texts use the plural Torot to describe discrete individual directives, which only later consolidated into the singular written scroll. To understand the word's scope, we have to observe how it adapts to different sociological environments, starting with the domestic sphere. In the book of Proverbs, Torah refers to the intimate ethical socialization provided by a mother. It is presented here as a life-sustaining guide for character development. The text specifically tears this maternal Torah with a father's musar, a term denoting discipline and correction. In the home, Torah is the positive, nurturing direction a child receives. However, when the setting moves to the sanctuary, the definition shifts as well. In the book of Leviticus, Torah functions as a technical administrative manual. It provides the concrete procedural steps for priests to follow when conducting sacrifices. In Deuteronomy, the word takes on a judicial function. It refers to the binding rulings issued by the central appellate court, decisions that carried the penalty of death if they were defied. The word functions as a dynamic continuum, scaling from the nurturing guidance of a mother to the highest procedural and judicial law of the nation. In the prophetic books, the focus shifts again. Here, Torah represents the direct, ethical disclosure of God's character and will, delivered by his spokespersons. The prophet Isaiah uses the term as a moral demand, prioritizing social justice and equity for the vulnerable over unreflective ceremonial performance. Isaiah also describes an eschatological vision where Torah serves as a universal light of wisdom emanating from Jerusalem to arbitrate international disputes. While these education-focused meanings are linguistically valid, we cannot strip the word of its legally binding statutory authority. Biblical Hebrew regularly groups Torah with technical legal terms, mitzvot or commands, chokim or statutes, and mishpatim or judicial verdicts. In the books of Exodus and Deuteronomy, this body of Torah functions as a public written legal charter that established social equality and required precise communal compliance. In this statutory context, Torah acts as the overarching framework that integrates all individual commands and judgments into a coherent covenantal whole. If the Hebrew concept is so varied, how did it become permanently locked in Western thought as the law? The answer lies in a translation choice made during the Hellenistic period. In the 3rd century BCE, bilingual Jewish scholars in Alexandria translated the Hebrew Bible into Koine Greek to produce the Septuagint. To represent Torah, these translators systematically chose the Greek noun nomos. By that period, the word nomos had hardened to mean a codified statutory enactment produced by a legislative authority, requiring compliance and carrying legal penalties. This mapped a Hebrew concept of divine education onto a Greek concept defined by civic duty and legislative code. This single translation choice narrowed the relational nuances of the Hebrew original, framing centuries of Western theological debate around the concepts of legislative code and civic duty. For the original biblical audiences, the modern distinction between law and instruction did not exist. They understood Torah as a unified reality, celebrated as the pedagogical tool of a divine teacher. At the same time, this instruction was revered as the binding, structured path of life for an entire nation. To understand this word, we have to see it in motion, adapting to its setting as it moves from the home to the temple and into the courtroom. Seen this way, Torah emerges as God's gracious self-revelation, an authoritative guide pointing toward a holy relationship between the Creator and the community.